Welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video. Today I want to recommend some 9.8 key issues to invest in for 2022. So first one here is a Marvel Comics Presents number 72. Yeah, big Wolverine key issue. I think moving into 2022, it's going to be a good idea to sort of add to your big Wolverine key issues. It's almost a no-brainer buying, Wolverine key issues. I've talked about in the past where Wolverine, I think, is sort of a really good secular growth trend within comic book investing. Wolverine's so popular, Hulk 181's done so well, a lot of these big Wolverine key issues in the 9.8 have done well too. So I think adding a few Wolverine big key issues in 2022 will be a pretty prudent strategy, I think. Marvel Comics Presents 72 Origin of Wolverine, probably one of the better values, I would say, in the 9.8 out of Wolverine key issues. 781 9.8s. In the Universal Blue Label. 34.1% is the 9.8 percentage. Recent prices for Marvel Comics Presents 72 in a 9.8. $416. Saw one sell for $421.66. And $449.95. So kind of $400 to $450, I would say, is the fair value on a Marvel Comics Presents 72. So, this is one I'm highlighting on this video. I do like this one. I think it's a good value right now. You could consider Wolverine Limited Series #1, even like an Incredible Hulk 340. All right, I know we talked about that, a Wolverine #8 on a recent video. All those are kind of, really good 1980s CGC 9.8 Wolverine key issues to consider. And I think, it'll be a decent time to buy them in 2022. Okay, next one I do have. It's a Batman 567. First appearance of Cassandra Cain, the new Batgirl. So I think this one's a decent time, and it's a really good 9.8, I would say, certainly if you're a Batman fan. Last year, that Birds of Prey movie came out. Cassandra Cain was in that movie as kind of a little young girl, I guess. But I feel like a really great movie would just be like a plain Batgirl movie, and instead of doing Barbara Gordon, maybe they would do like a grown-up Cassandra Cain just kicking ass on a Batgirl movie. I think would be a really great idea. And this one's kind of a great value right now, I would say, in the 9.8. First appearance of Cassandra Cain. Batman 567, 218 9.8s. A 1 of 218 in the Blue Label, not too bad. 31.1%, the 9.8 percentage. Not too bad there as well. Kind of an average toughness in the 9.8, I guess you could say. So recent prices for Batman. 567, 9.8 white pages. Saw one sell for $250. Saw one sell for $350 as well. So I think that's the range on this one. Certainly, I like these at a good fair price. So in 2022, I think because there's no real like Cassandra Cain's going to be in a movie or anything like that, I think you could probably get this closer to $250 at that price. I think a Batman 567 is making a lot of sense if you're a Batman fan moving through 2022. Next one is an Amazing Spider-Man number 361. Yeah, first full appearance of Carnage. Probably one of the best 90s covers of all time. I highlighted this on the last video, I think it was, as it's probably going to be a good time to try to get a 361 at a good price in the 9.8 in 2022. Certainly last year, this book really heated up. I think at one point they were over $1,000 in the direct edition, like $1,100 when the Let There Be Carnage trailer dropped. So in 2022, you can get this one at a much better value. Really quick, I'll mention too, this is all the symbiote books within this recommend, I guess. Maybe if your budget's a little bit higher, think about an Amazing Spider-Man 300 or an Amazing Spider-Man 316. At some point in 2022, I think these ones will probably cool off even a little bit more than they have already because there's no movie and the movie already happened type of thing. And I think you can get them for a really good value. But 361 we'll focus on here. 4,795 9.8s in the Blue Label. One of the more popular 9.8s of all time. And it's an early 90s one, so super heavily printed, as all early 90s Marvel comics are. 24.1%, the 9.8 percentage. Prices, $660. Just saw one sell in the last few days here in an auction for Amazing Spider-Man 361 9.8 white pages. Saw one go as low as $575 in the last month. So I think at some point in 2022, whether it's going to be in a few months or maybe it's like 8 months or 9 months, I think these ones this one might pull back to hopefully that $575 price or even lower. I think it's a great buy at that point. So Yeah, keep your eye out for symbiote books in 2022 for a fair value. Okay, next one I do have. Batman Vengeance of Bane. Special, #1. Origin and first appearance of Bane. One I've liked for a really long time and continue to like. I think it's kind of just slowly but surely trended up really nice in a 9.8. There's no real rumors, so it hasn't like spiked up in price or anything like that, but there's not too many like first appearances in the modern age of a Batman villain that's like really iconic, and I think Bane is absolutely a huge Batman villain, so it's a pretty special one from that perspective, I think. 1,069.8s in the blue label. Yeah, over 1,000 in the blue label now. They used to be kind of 800 or 900 for a bunch of years there. 31.3% is the 9.8 percentage, not too bad. Saw one sell in an auction for $686. That's one of the higher prices I've saw for this book. Also saw another one sell for $500 in kind of a stealthy auction where the pictures didn't look that good. So normally the fair value for this one I think is $550 to $575 right now. I think it's pretty much completely worth it if, you know, the 9.8's looking awesome, $550 let's say. For Vengeance of Bane in the 9.8 I think is a 1-2 target in 2022. And, you know, no Bane movie on the horizon, just an awesome book. Awesome first appearance if you're a Batman fan, for sure. Okay, next one I do have, and we'll kind of recommend a lot of sort of maybe whatever your favorite Uncanny X-Men 9.8 is, but we'll talk about Uncanny X-Men 141. This is a first appearance of the second Phoenix, Rachel, and you get a lot of the first appearances of the alternate universe X-Men. And I mentioned like that's kind of maybe a stealthy speculation, although this is not a very speculative book. You can absolutely buy this 9.8 and think of it as an investment grade book, but maybe they start doing multiverse stuff in the MCU, and then maybe MCU X-Men comes in and it's alternate universe X-Men. Maybe it's like Pyro and Avalanche or something like that. So you never know, but maybe there's that potential, but just a classic book. Uncanny X-Men 141, 705 9.8s in a blue label, a 1 705. I do have the newsstand edition too, luckily. 13.8% is the 9.8 percentage, not bad at all. Recent price for this one, $1,299.95. Sort of in the last year, I've saw this one kind of, you know, a really kind of good priced auction would go a little bit under 1,000, but then there's been quite a few that have sold for sort of in this $1,299.95 price range. So yeah, I think, you know, maybe a little bit closer to $1,000 in the 9.8 in this one in the direct edition would be a pretty fantastic buy. But other X-Men books I mentioned there, you could definitely think about Uncanny X-Men 221, first appearance of Mr. Sinister, Uncanny X-Men 266, first full appearance of Gambit, or even an Uncanny X-Men 121, I got that one, first full appearance of Alpha Flight. There's a lot of key issues in there, whatever your budget might be in the 9.8, I think. Uncanny X-Men books, the big keys are going to be decent buys in 2022. They're cooling down just a little bit. From about a year ago, there were, you know, X-Men's coming back to the MCU, and the coronavirus market was a lot hotter then, so they were a lot more expensive about a year ago. So X-Men key issues are making sense right now, I think. Okay, next one I do have as well. Guardians of the Galaxy #1 from 2008. Oh, we got a cat coming in here. Oh no. Guardians of the Galaxy #1 from 2008. One I've really liked over time, and you know, moving forward in 2022, some people will be anticipating the third Guardians movie, I guess, which I'm pretty sure is coming out next year. We'll let Kilimanjaro move through here if he wants. For Guardians of the Galaxy #1 2008, I think, you know, it's a great 9.8, and you can think about buying one before that movie hype really starts to ratchet up, is kind of my thinking. 201 9.8s in the blue label. 23.7% is the 9.8 percentage, and a few sales on this one. One, because I mentioned you might be able to get lucky and get this one for under 500. 407.99 I saw one sell for, I think in the last week or two. I think that's a really good price. 599.99 I also saw one sell, and 549.99. So hopefully you get it under 500. This is kind of, you know, second or first full appearance or second appearance of the new team Guardians of the Galaxy. You might want to consider Annihilation Conquest 6. That's another one I have too. And I got two of the Guardians of the Galaxy #1s as well. It's a great one. Annihilation Conquest 6 predates this one, where the new team Guardians kind of get together. Also on this one, the 23.7% of all graded copies are 9.8. That's really tough for a book from 2008, so it's a tough 9.8 as well. So I've always thought that that had the potential to kind of ratchet up there in price, certainly over $500. All right, next one's one I have. I didn't bring it out, though. A G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, #1. Yeah, just a great, awesome key issue from the 80s that you can think about purchasing in 2022, because last year and probably even the year before that, this one really heated up in the whole coronavirus comic book market that was really hot. Now it's cooling down based on some recent prices. There's 703 9.8s in a blue label. 16.8% is the 9.8 percentage. And recent sales saw one sell for $1,238. Another one for $1,808. So I think that's kind of the range on this one, both in direct editions. This one, there were a few that sold for like $3,000 in the direct edition, about a year ago. So $1,238. I mentioned in a prior video, like $1,250 in a 9.8 G.I. Joe #1 is kind of a price target to aim for. So I would stick with that if you're a big G.I. Joe fan, and certainly better than buying a year ago for like $2,500 or $3,000 or whatever they were selling for. Some of the prices just surprised me so much back then. Okay, next one, a bit of a no-brainer, I think, for 2022. A New Mutants 98 in a CGC 9.8. Oh, quickly on the G.I. Joe as well, you can think about a Transformers #1. I feel those books are really similar, being that they're toys made into comics, but both really popular brands. So G.I. Joe #1, Transformers #1, moving into 2022 are going to be great ones, I think. But New Mutants 98, first appearance of Deadpool, a no-brainer. With MCU, going to be coming out with a Deadpool movie, in the next 3 years or something like that, 3 to 5 years, let's call it. I think now will be the time to try to get this one at a fair value. 3,627 9.8s in a blue label, and 19% is the 9.8 percentage. Recent prices, 1,575. That one was in an older case. You're not seeing them go that low too often lately. 1,795 saw one sell for. That's more around the fair value. So if you can get lucky, get this one closer to 1,500. I think a New Mutants 98 is going to be a good buy in 2022. And another sort of alternative Deadpool key issue maybe is a Wolverine 88, where Deadpool and Wolverine first fight. A great 1990s 9.8, kind of an underfollowed one. I got 3 of those in the 9.8. That's one of my favorite 1990s covers and comics pretty much of all time from when I was a kid. So Wolverine 88, another Deadpool key. That one's kind of 400 to 450 maybe in the 9.8 Wolverine 88. But yeah, some Deadpool key issues worth considering in 2022 before they heat up into that movie, I think. Next one's a Star Wars Heir to the Empire #1. Yeah, I've recommended this one off and on. I think it's still a great one to think about. I think Thrawn is sort of fixing to maybe be like the next Thanos of the Star Wars universe. So hopefully that happens. You get in there on this one. Right around $1,200 right now, I think, is a fair value. All US dollars we'll talk about. I think you can, Heir to the Empire #1 is one to consider. 254 9.8s in the blue label. Yeah, it's a Dark Horse Star Wars comic, so not going to be like as heavily printed as like a DC or Marvel book. So I think that's a benefit for it, because it does kind of seem expensive when you look at like villain first appearances, like A Vengeance of Bane for $575 or something is looking kind of good compared to Heir to the Empire at $1,200. But then it's a Dark Horse. There's only 254 of them. It starts to make a little more sense. So yeah, hopefully they just give Thrawn a big push, and I think right around kind of 1,200, maybe even closer to 1,000 if you can pull it off. And Heir to the Empire #1 in 2022 is going to be a good one to think about. Okay, and last one, I sort of touched on this one. I think it was on the last video. I got one of these, didn't bring it out though. A Spawn #1 in a newsstand edition. Yeah, those Spawn movies haven't quite come yet, but this is just a great one if you're a Spawn fan. The more rare newsstand edition I do recommend for a Spawn #1, because there's so many of them in a 9.8. 8,193 9.8s in the Universal Blue Label. Yeah, that's probably the most out of any 9.8 that I can recall. So yeah, the newsstand edition, they don't separate them on the census, unfortunately, but there's probably about 300 or 400 newsstand editions in Spawn #1, 9.8 white pages. 49.8%, the 9.8 percentage of the directs and the newsstands bunched together. One sold for $1,100, and one sold for 1,150 that I saw. I think, yeah, closer to 1,000, maybe even a little bit under if you can swing it in 2022, is going to be a great buy on a Spawn #1 newsstand, I think, and just one you can absolutely enjoy. I know, I got one of these in the newsstand 9.8. It's just one I really like to have in the collection. Wouldn't mind having another one, and if that Spawn movie comes out, that's been rumored for like 5 years, but if that happens, this one will likely pop for sure. But just a great one to have in the 9.8, I think. Okay, a full list of about 10 with a couple add-ons there in between. But yeah, just wanted to get a bit of a quicker video to get some of my 2022 picks out there to the team. But thanks so much for watching. Yeah, really appreciate all the support, and we'll see you on the next one.